My wife said, "I regret every day with you." I threw my wedding ring and replied, "Then let this be the last." A week later, my wife looked me in the eye and said she regretted every day with me, so I did something she never expected. My wife hated my blue-collar life and constantly criticized me. After years of trying to please her, she screamed that she regretted every day with me. I finally broke and said, "Then let this be the last." She was expecting me to beg. I didn't. I left, and a week later, I filed for divorce, but not before executing a final act that shocked her. She was screaming so loud I thought the windows would rattle. Her face was red, shining with that kind of rage that doesn't fade after sleep. She pointed at me with a trembling hand and said, "I'd rather be alone forever than spend one more year watching you rot in this life you're so proud of." I didn't say a word. I didn't move. I just stood there, feeling something in my chest snap so cleanly it almost felt like a bone breaking. I'm a construction foreman, 47 years old. I've spent my life in concrete dust, heavy gloves, and early mornings. Most days I came home too tired to think about anything beyond dinner and tomorrow's job orders. I like it. I like the simple things that didn't ask me to be someone else. That wasn't what she wanted. I knew it even before she screamed it in my face. We met in the aisle of a home improvement store, staring at buckets of spackle. She was wearing a red rain jacket and quietly cursing because she couldn't figure out the difference between two brands. I thought she was beautiful, even looking thoroughly frustrated. When I offered to help, she looked me up and down and said, "You look like you actually know what you're doing. Lucky you." I should have understood right there. Some part of her already resented the fact that I was so self-assured, so settled in my way of being. Still, we started dating fast. Everything with her was fast. Within 2 months, she had moved into my small house. She started rearranging the cabinets, buying decorative pillows, hanging pictures on walls I'd never bothered to decorate. I didn't mind. Her energy made me feel like life was bigger than I was letting it be. For a while it worked. We fought, sure, but it felt alive. She teased me for being boring. I called her dramatic. Then we'd end up tangled up on the couch, her laughter muffled against my shoulder. Those days are hard to remember now, given how ugly everything became later. The first cracks were small. I'd come home late and she'd be on the couch with her phone, not even looking up. "Dinner's cold," I'd reply. She'd shrug, scrolling, as if it didn't matter whether I ate or not. Other times she'd come home hours after me, smelling of wine and perfume. I'd look up from the show I'd put on just for some noise in the house, and she'd throw her bag onto the floor with a thud. "Are you still awake?" she'd say, as if it were an accusation. "Yeah." Couldn't sleep. She never offered more than that. She'd just walk past me, closing the bedroom door as if that were the final word. I tried. God, how I tried. I started waking up earlier to leave before she got up, just to avoid the tension. At night, I'd sit in my truck after work, hands on the wheel, counting deep breaths before going inside. Have you ever had to mentally prepare yourself just to enter your own home? One morning, she was already in the kitchen when I walked in. She didn't take her eyes off her coffee. "We can't keep doing this," she said, matter-of-factly. She gestured between us. "You pretending everything's fine when it's not." "What do you want me to do?" I asked. She finally looked at me, and her eyes were tired. "Be someone else," she whispered. That's when I knew nothing I did would ever be enough. But I didn't leave, not yet. I kept showing up, kept working, kept paying the bills, kept hoping she would remember there was something worth saving. And every day, she got a little colder. I think people imagine the worst fights happen in one huge explosion, but it wasn't like that for us. Ours came in drops. Small comments over breakfast, cold looks across the room, silences that became so heavy the walls felt too close. I remember one night specifically. I'd spent a long day pouring concrete for 10 hours in a cold wind that cut through every layer of clothing. I came home late, arms and legs aching, and she was sitting in the dark with only the TV flickering. I flipped on the light and dropped my lunchbox on the counter. She didn't even look at me. "Have you ever considered how small your life is?" she said. I turned slowly. "Small?" Still, she didn't look up. "You come home, eat the same crap, watch the same things. It's like you're already dead, just too stubborn to lie down. I grabbed the edge of the counter, feeling my knuckles turn white. "You think I enjoy coming home to this?" I asked. Her jaw locked. Maybe I was young and stupid. I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say that hadn't been said 100 times in 100 small, tired fights. I went to take a shower, my hand shaking from more than just exhaustion. Some nights she'd pick a fight just to see if I'd react, as if she needed proof she could still hurt me. I'd try to eat in peace and she'd start. "You know what's sad?" she'd say. I wouldn't answer. It didn't make a difference. "You think this is enough? You think this," she gestured around the kitchen, "our life means anything?" "It means something to me," I'd say, my voice steady. "That's the problem. You're proud of being common." Sometimes I wondered if she was trying to get me to leave so she wouldn't have to go herself. It was around this time that people started noticing. My brother called late one night while I was sitting in my truck outside the house, not ready to go in. "Are you two okay?" he asked. I closed my eyes. "It's not quiet, is it? Do you want a place to stay?" he offered. "Not yet." He didn't push. He just said, "Call me before it gets worse." Mick from work started asking questions too. We were loading rebar onto a truck and he looked at me, wiping sweat from his brow. "Man, you look rough." I said thanks, trying to keep it light. "Want to talk about it?" "Nah, fair enough." But he clapped me on the shoulder before leaving. That small gesture stayed with me longer than any of her words. One night, she came home late. I was sitting in the dark kitchen with a radio on low, eating reheated stew. She walked in, flipped on the overhead light, and squinted at me as if she was surprised I was still there. "Waiting up for me?" she asked. "No," I dropped my spoon. "Just eating." "You look pathetic sitting here alone." This time, something inside me flared. I stood up, pushing my chair back, and it scraped loudly on the tile. "Then don't look at me," I said. Her eyes widened slightly, surprised I'd raised my voice. Finally gathering her nerve, she scoffed. "Maybe I won't. Maybe I said, or maybe I'm just tired of pretending you're better than me." She stared at me for a second, as if deciding whether to continue, but instead of saying anything more, she turned and walked away, her footsteps echoing down the hall. I didn't follow her. I didn't apologize. I didn't feel guilty. I just sat back down and finished my meal. I started sleeping on the couch more often. Sometimes she'd walk past me in the morning on her way to the bathroom and give me a look that was almost pity. Other times, she wouldn't even look at me. Have you ever shared a house with someone and felt lonelier than when you lived alone? About a month before the end, Lena, her friend, called me. She had never called me before. It was late, and I almost didn't answer. "I know this is weird," she began, her voice soft, "but I can't watch this anymore." "Watch what?" "The way she talks about you, the way she—" She stopped, as if choosing her words carefully. "She's not fair to you." I ran a hand over my face. "I know." "You deserve better," she said. "This isn't my life," I mumbled. She was silent for a second. "Maybe it should be." After we hung up, I sat there for a long time, the phone heavy in my hand. It was the first time someone had said out loud what I'd been thinking for months, but still I didn't leave. I still thought if I was patient enough, things would go back to the way they were. That's the stupidest part of hope. It clings to you long after it has stopped making sense. The nights started blurring together. I'd come home late on purpose, hoping she'd be asleep so I wouldn't have to hear how much of a disappointment I was. Most nights she wasn't in bed when I got there. She'd be sitting in the living room with the lights off, her phone glowing in her hand, looking like she was waiting for someone better to show up. One night I walked in with my boots covered in dried mud, and she didn't even lift her head. "Where were you?" she asked, her voice smooth, unemotional. "Working," she scoffed, still scrolling. "That's all you ever do, work, as if that makes you worth something." I set my lunchbox down, slowly. "It puts a roof over your head?" I said. She finally looked at me, and her eyes were icy. "You think that's enough? You think I should be grateful because you know how to swing a hammer and pay the bills?" "I think you used to be," I said, quieter than I wanted. Her jaw locked. "Maybe I was young and stupid." I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say that hadn't been said 100 times in 100 small, tired fights. I went to take a shower, my hand shaking from more than just exhaustion.